We'll turn the projector on, I think, John. Tonight, we have a special speaker, a person who I like very much, who contributed articles to my brand, Book 23. And I have to say that when you think about history, you know, a lot of people, Western history, a lot of people think, well, you know, cowboys and Indians, you know, gold rush, Indians, you know, running around, and just, you know, it's limited in some people's minds. But history is so much bigger than that. And there's so many interesting things that happen that we like to know about. And one of them is the historic Susana Field Laboratory. In other words, where some of the scientific work was done for the later on moonshot in 1969, among other things. And so tonight, we are very blessed to have our own member, Carla Bollinger. Please welcome me. Welcome, Carla Bollinger.
I'm surprised anyone showed up tonight after my presentation last year. I kept you way beyond your bedtime. My daughter, Dr. Justine Winkin, is the one who helps me put together the PowerPoints. She's an educator, and she had an opportunity to yell at me last year. This is too long, this is too much. I had 99 photos. So I've cut it way back. So before I begin the actual presentation, I want to say something. I have spent years going to meetings about the contamination, and so much is published about it. There's facts, and there's lies. First of all, there never was a nuclear meltdown. That's not fact. There was mishandling of the chemicals and the nuclear waste and all kinds of things. That was put together by the Atomic Energy Department, and they have done a noble job of cleaning it up. There's all kinds of records you can check online of what the level of contamination is at the Santa Susana Field Lab. So the other contaminant, and it's everywhere, is it's a chemical called, I keep forgetting how to pronounce it, trichloroethylene. TCE is really what they use, the nomenclature. But that was used to clean engines. It's a degreaser. It was used in all the car shops, parts, throughout the United States, dry cleaners. It was used, of course, by the rocket engine people. And when all this rocket engine testing began, it was before the Congress and President Nixon signed off on the environmental protection laws. So yes, there's contamination. Boeing has spent millions of dollars, and they have done an extraordinary job of cleaning it up, restoring it to its natural place. It's just what happened and what they've done. It is a crucial place for the wildlife corridor. There's nothing left that connects the Santa Monica Mountains through the Simi Hills to the Santa Susana Mountains and beyond. This is it. And so I'm very grateful for it. We will go ahead and start the presentation now, because this is glorious. There's no other place on the planet. And this photo I had shot when I was fortunate to be invited to see the rock art at the Santa Susana Field Lab. It's called the Burro Flats area. And it was done prehistoric time period for the Indians or First People or Native Americans are referred to in all these ways. But Brian, I think prehistoric is about 13,000, up to 13,000 years ago, or close to that, or what?
Well, yeah, the rock art isn't that old.
Oh no, the rock art, by the way, is not that old.
Earliest occupation anyway,
Right.
about 9,000.
That's correct, but the people were there, and there's a lot of it's just a amazing amount of archaeological treasures up there, and this is just, of course, one of the most beautiful rock art. It's a polychrome, red, black, and white, and they have repainted it through the years too. So this time period was the winter solstice. That's why the sunlight is hitting in there. But nowhere else on the planet have you seen such amazing humankind technological growth. It's almost fascinating to think that here we had rock art and now we're doing rockets. So it's a place to behold. And Boeing used to give tours, bus tours. They haven't for quite a while because they're still in the middle, they're still finishing up on the cleanup. So I hope one day they'll go back to that. Now, my other reasons for being interested in weapons and space rocket engines. First of all, I was born in 1946, as old as and we were actually living in a project housing built by Pratt & Whitney, or the government for Pratt & Whitney workers, and my father was a machinist and tool and die maker. The importance of a tool and die maker during that era was they didn't have computers running in automated processing of things, so his job was very important. He had seen Los Angeles and he wanted to get there. So we moved from West Hartford, Connecticut to Torrance.
Yay, Torrance.
Yeah. And that's one thing. So, I lived with a father and I've seen his working on machine shops. And by the way, I sold power and hand tools later in my career. And I had even taken a machine shop class. So I've always been around this type of work environment. My career, after I graduated West Torrance High, I worked at a small company, Associated Aircraft in Torrance. And the importance about this is all these side businesses or ancillary businesses connected to aerospace and all the things that were occurring during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, 80s, rather phenomenal. And if you think about the importance of all the small parts, just think about what happened to the Challenger O-rings, small part. And unfortunately, they have to be made to specifications or things can go very wrong. In 1965, that job was there, but it was sort of a dead-end place for me, for my career. So I went to work at Cosmodyne, not far from the Torrance Airport, which I had never seen till your tour. And so they manufactured cryogenic equipment, which was required in the first phase of a rocket launch because of the thrust, the coolant was needed. Cryogenics is a very low, super cool temperatures. Liquid propellant fuels need the cryogenic rocket thrust first off to launch. And then the normal lift is stable at normal temperatures, is usually kerosene. And the semi-cryogenics is a blend, let's say, of liquid oxygen with room temperature kerosene. While I was working there, we had the honor of having an astronaut come to visit us, John Glenn. And he gave a speech, and he thanked us, all of the workers, for all that we've done for him. And he was such a wonderful human being. I couldn't believe that he thanked us. And we all wanted to thank him. I later in life, in my career, was working for Space Labs, right in Chatsworth. I was a medical supplies division supervisor, and the company built monitoring equipment, telemetry, all these things that today are now what's keeping us alive, myself included. And the first person to be our first American astronaut to take, NASA chose Space Labs for their monitoring system. And so it was quite a company, very exciting to work for them. And then later, I joined the Santa Susana Mountain Park Association. I joined in 2002, and they were so desperate for board members, they asked me to be a board member when I signed up. So I was knee-deep into that organization. Plus, I lived on both sides of the Santa Susana Field Lab. I lived with my children, we lived in, at that time I was married to the wrong man. And we would hear all the rocket testing going off at night. It was rather exciting. At that time, Runkle Land was a cattle ranch between us and the Santa Susana Field Lab. It was very undeveloped at that time. And then later in life, I moved to Woolsey Canyon, which is where the Santa Susana Field Lab is located. I made, because I added a tail end of my presentation last year, I kind of got you confused on one little thing. Chatsworth, Santa Susana Field Lab is about half a mile up the road from Woolsey Canyon, actually in Ventura County. So I just wanted to include it in the Chatsworth presentation, but they are not in Chatsworth. It's outside of Chatsworth in Simi Valley, Ventura. And so I became, as a board member, a participant of NASA Section 106, which is a national historic preservation effort to save the history of the Santa Susana Field Lab and save the history of all the archaeological treasures. It was a great honor to be a part of that team. And I was just one of many dedicated people. So in the process, as I said, all this environmental cleanup's been going on, demolition, so most of the test stands are gone except for 2. And it just makes me sad because they eliminated some of the test stands I thought were so historic, but financially, NASA and Boeing couldn't afford to keep them maintained. It's just a lot of money to maintain them. NASA Area 4 is where the Burro Flats Cultural District, Traditional Cultural Property, a TCP nomination, so that went through. And Boeing's transfer of their site, which is Area 1, Area 3, Area 4, is where all the main amount of rocket testing and early development began. This land now has been transferred, not transferred, but the National Land Trust it's been made into a conservation easement to protect it at least for the next 100 years. Now, this is Woolsey Canyon, and I lived about right here. And when Henry and I started dating, he joined me there. We loved it there, but, and long story short, we moved to his condo in Newberry Park. The meeting before, you can see where the Chatsworth Reservoir is, pretty close. And then you enter and you're in Area 1 where Boeing, I'm saying Boeing, but it originally was North American Aviation Rocketdyne Division. And then Area 2 was NASA's, and we'll see that a little better later in the presentation. And then Area 4, Area 3 was part of the North American Aviation. And then the undeveloped land became in the hands of Boeing. And all of this is all part of this whole long, beautiful wildlife corridor that's an important strategic place. Now, seems to be out of order, but
I think you skipped this slide.
pardon? Oh, I did. It's good they have a sense of humor. Okay, just want to check. I don't have a good clicking finger here. Oh, I went way too far. Okay, back 2 more. Nope, 1 more. Sorry, I'll get there. 1926, Robert Goddard, we were talking about him earlier this evening, he was the first to launch the first liquid propellant rocket in Auburn, Massachusetts. I wasn't sure if I had it right, but it turns out it is. And then there was a long period of time where nobody worked on rocket development until, unfortunately, World War II, and Werner von Braun and his team were part of the German Nazis at that time, and they built the first rocket missile, and off we went. And in 1944 to 1945, he designed the V-2 rocket, which is a long-range ballistic missile. And he's, was striking England. This missile was striking England and Belgium, sad to say. But he was very, very grateful at the end of the war that the American allies got to him before the communists. So we both were winners, both von Braun and his team and America were winners by, pulling him in. North American Aviation set up a group of rocket engineers to start developing rockets, and that started 1935 to 1965 with the first location at the Mines Field site, which some of you went to, and I guess saw a presentation there, and you get to go again if you want. And at that time, there was no place to test rockets. They were really just testing the components of the rockets. So they had to find a place for the static test stands, a much larger rocket test stand than what they could possibly even think of doing as urban development was developing in that area by Lax. I already covered that Von Braun did get picked up by us. And he and his team were brought here, and they began working for the US Army on America's intermediate ballistic missile. The North American Aviation acquired the property in Simi Hills. Ventura was formerly a ranch, and there were two places that were a ranch, I should say, two properties. And then that became that area 2, area 3, area 4, the San Susana Field Lab. The vertical test stand was the first built, again by the Von Braun and team. And this first rocket engine test was the Navajo program. And that was built for the US Air Force, Army Force, I'm not sure. Yeah, it was Air Force back then. And the Rocketdyne Division. The US Army Air Force became the US Air Force, so in 1947. Now, in the Santa Susana Field Bowl area is the first built in America, large-scale test site with test stands 1, 2, and 3 really, and they were activated, and rocket engine testing was performed on the Redstone, Navajo Atlas H-1, and Saturn programs, as well as the Thor missile for the US Air Force and the Jupiter missile for the US Army. We'll cover a little more detail about those particular missiles. This is the bowl area. Hitting the wrong one again. In the daytime, you can see that it was a perfect place to put all these test stands because of the natural rock formation. It's actually called the Chatsworth Formation. And there's different canyons and different places for the different areas. And it certainly was pretty to see them all lit up at night, as you can see here, the 3 test stands. Oh. Okay, I need training. Dwight D. Eisenhower, our president, as you also know, was a general during World War II, was realized along with Lyndon B. Johnson, the Senate Majority Leader Democrat. It's hard to imagine a Republican president and a Democrat Congress approved the same thing. They both felt that a separate agency had to be developed that would be separate from the military. So it was really nice to read that there was this cooperation at one time. And this is because they knew Russia was moving ahead of us in our space race, which is really became a military race because this rocket development also was for military rockets. So they worked together and signed into law the NASA Act, which created the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Then we had John F. Kennedy president, and he made his famous speech, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade," September 12, 1962. And this was televised. His vision came true. Apollo 11 landed July 20, 1969. So, unfortunately, as you all know, his dream, he wasn't here to see his dream come true, but thinking of that relatively short time, we did land our astronauts or our man on the moon. And of course, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin were on the module that landed on the moon, the lunar module Eagle. And while the command module was piloted by Michael Collins. Lyndon B. Johnson became the president and carried forth Kennedy's vision. And we made it before the Russians to the moon, although they were the first to hit space before us. Now the programs I've been talking about, the bowl area and the canyon area, were in that section where you saw them lit up at night. And the missile that they were creating was larger than the German V-2 one and the Redstone rocket engines. And these were developed by the military. And as it turned out, the Navajo was never really put out as solely as a Navajo missile. It became incorporated in the development of other missiles. I gotta read this. The North American aviation went through a lot of changes. Ownership originally was the North American Aviation Rocketdyne Division, then it became, the owner became Rockwell International, Boeing, United Technologies, even Pratt & Whitney Rocketdyne, even sold to General Corporation and merged with Aerojet Rocketdyne. Recently, very recently, L3 Harris has bought out and became the owner of Rocketdyne. So they've gone through a lot of changes, but they're still all part of the whole Rocketdyne era. The Santa Susana Field Lab test programs continued with the COCA test stand. And these had the programs for the Atlas, still with the military, J2. And then we began with NASA on the Saturn V, 5 J2 engines, and then the space mission. And Delta was another area that was test stands with this different types of programs. This rocket engine was the Jupiter. All this is at the Rocketdyne facility. But this one, the Santa Susana Field Lab, Instrument Lab, was circa 1962 up there at Santa Susana Field Lab. And so you can see they had the control house, and they would observe the rocket engine, testing, and all kinds of other things. I've been in some of their block houses and things before the demolition. I wish they had saved some of them. They're really cool. But alas, they're all gone. Now, this is a picture of the Saturn launch. There was never any actual rocket launching at the Santa Susana Field Lab. Strictly rocket engine testing. So I just wanted to make that clear. A lot of people think there was actual launches. No. But here you'll see, these are the, I can't read here. Oh, the F1 engine, and 1 second, I gotta find that sheet. Somehow we got out of order on my page here. So you'll see that we have, these are the 5 engines, the F1, very powerful thrust. And these are the propellant, the liquid propellant is a semi-cryogenic mixture. And this if they tried to do it all in one engine, things could not work as well. It wouldn't lift off as well in a launch. So they came up with this method. And then the second stage is 5 of the J2 engines, and then the propellant is a liquid hydrogen, so, and liquid oxygen together. So all this requires a certain, 1,000,000 pounds of thrust. So they've really well designed and developed this program. The third stage is a liquid hydrogen, and it doesn't require as much thrust, so it's lighter. And then the instrument unit, and then where the Apollo spacecraft capsule will be. So this details each of the different rockets and the rocket engine and the type of missile that was used, rocket missile, and for what purpose. So you have, as I said earlier, the Navajo didn't actually be sent out there in a missile or what have you, but it helped develop the Redstone, NASA's other rocket programs, including the Jupiter C, the long, short-range ballistic missiles for the, just different developments. U.S. Army was set up in Germany with the products, the missiles, Sorry, I gotta find, things got out of order here. It's like my life. So the Atlas program, orbital rockets and boosters, balloon tanks, the development Delta family of rockets, Thor, and space probes, just a variety of different launches of different vehicles, different reasons, were all developed and tested at the Santa Susana Field Lab. And we'll get into all the different astronauts. The Mercury 7 astronauts were the first to go into outer space, and they were all fighter pilots. That was required. And for good reason. All of this was early experimental launching of sending people out into the outer space, so they wanted them to have the experience and knowledge to handle any emergencies, which did happen. They should have included Ham the chimp. He was sent out before Alan Shepard's flight the first American to go into outer space in 1961. He was actually trained to hit a lever or two, and he was so lovable. I just so glad that he came back okay. He ended up being living from 1957 to 1983, and he was just a sweetheart. He was sent to a zoo, but then in his later years of life, they had him go to a place that had other chimps, because the first part of his retirement from outer space was without chimps, so this was good. Scott Carpenter, these are in alphabetical order, more or less, but he was the second astronaut to orbit the Earth and the fourth to go into space. 1962, and then we have John Glenn, who was on the Mercury Atlas 6 and the STS, the shuttle flights. He was the first astronaut to orbit the Earth in space. He went around 3 times, and then he was on a space shuttle flight in 1998, and he was 77 years old. He had to do some sales talk to let him go. And Walter Wally Schirra was on the Mercury Atlas A, the Gemini V1A, and for the Apollo 7. His 3 space flights went from 1962, 1965, with the first time space rendezvous station, with the Gemini 6, with Gemini 7. And then he went on the Apollo 7 in 1968. Donald D. Slayton was a test project astronaut, and he's the NASA director of the flight crews. And he also he was with the Apollo-Soyuz test project, ASTP, that flew the docking module. I mean, these were all very courageous, almost suicidal men to do these projects. Gordon Cooper was the astronaut on the Mercury Atlas 9 and Gemini 5, 1963 for the Mercury Atlas, and in the command pilot for the Gemini 5, 1965. Virgil Gus Grissom, Mercury Redstone 4, Gemini 3, and Apollo 1. I think, you look at how daring these men were to do these flights. And what was sad, though, is he died on the Apollo 1. And he had flown with John Young, and it was just tragic. I mean, it was a fatal fire. Alan B. Shepard Jr. was on the Mercury Redstone 3 and Apollo 14. He was the first American in space, and I loved his quote. He said, "I'm sitting atop this Redstone rocket and trusting the fact that every part of this ship was built by the lowest bidder." John Glenn concurred. This is the Delta test stand area, where they had 3 rockets, test stands, built in 1957. And the COCUS test stands, Area 3. These are so magnificent, and they are saving the 2 test stands they're saving are the 2 COCUS stands. This is one of my trips up there, and invited to attend the tour. This gives you an idea of the COCUS stand, the height of it, based on the height of human beings. This man down here, sorry, hit the wrong button again. Mark Ossikow has been there for 15 years as a bird bander. There's a lot of environmental people that work up there. I mean, when I say work, I mean they donate their time. And there's beekeepers, there's just a lot of wonderful people that donate their time because it is rich with wildlife. The Coca tool crib, that was demolished, and I almost cried with my tool background. I thought, how could you demolition a tool crib? Then Coca Stand 4, and that one's gone. And this is a view. We were able to climb up on one of the ramps, and I got to photograph a view from the Coca 1 platform. You can see the rock formations, they're just gorgeous. And it was, again, just, it held back some of the test stand launch testing noise by being in the middle of all these rocks in the canyons. Coca 1 frame with the largest ball bearing I've ever seen, so I had to photograph it. I think it's a ball bearing. I want to give special recognition and appreciation to Boeing, Kamara Sams, who is the Santa Susana Field Life Program Director, NASA, Peter Zorba, the NASA Program Director, and although Marilee Fellows has retired, she was absolutely wonderful to also know and guide us on tours and what have you. I called, even though I didn't get to meet Steve Soka. He's on the board of directors of the Flight Path Museum. You're welcome. If you haven't seen the photos on the back, there's a photo of the mines field. And, he gave me, a little information about the early trying to develop the rocket engines there. McDonnell was there, North American Aviation had facilities there. And so my other references is a book I had, One Small Step, The Inside Story of Space Exploration, written by David Whitehouse, and of course basic, searches on the internet. This was, okay, what did I do? Here, this is such a fun website. If you've never gone on it, I mean, Mike has done a great job of putting a lot of our rocket history on that website. There seems to be a page missing, or I somehow skimmed by it, but I wanted to show, let me see if it's on there. Oh, number 8. There we go. Dale Byers, Henry and I got to meet him. It was sort of a random chance thing, and interview him, talk with him. He was in leukemia in retirement. By the way, he lost his eye in a car accident years ago when he was young, but he became the American Aerospace Engineer and Deputy Administrator of NASA International. And he did all kinds of contract work for NASA's space program, the Apollo Command, and he was just instrumental in keeping programs going when there were flaws. And he also was, for a short time, Werner von Braun's boss. And he said Werner von Braun referred to himself as the prisoner of peace, because he was heavily guarded, as you can imagine, because he came from Germany and who knew. But over time, things got relaxed. But at first, he and his team were leading a very sheltered life. William Fenninghoff, my buddy engineer Bill, he was the development and it handled the development and testing of rocket engines, Redstone, Navajo, and the space shuttle engine. Hired in 1953 by NAA and the rocket division. And he really was a great human being. He lived into his mid-90s, and he and I would take turns writing editorials, like for the LA Times, the Daily News, the Ventura Star, other papers, counteracting the misinformation about all the contamination. I mean, like I said earlier, but there was some misinformation. So we would take turns writing articles in counteracting the things we were reading. Unfortunately, Don Heim couldn't send me his photo. He's older too, but he handled the, you think about, these are just 3 of the men that work there and their responsibilities, but there were thousands of people there, and thousands of people at Rocketdyne. Dale Myers was out of the Downey facility, and so they all went up to the Santa Susana Field Lab to work with the engineers up there during testing and all kinds of things. So it wasn't just a group of engineers in one location. Even Von Braun came from Huntsville, Alabama for testing. So it was quite an important strategic place for all the rocket engine development. And I think I missed one. There is another. Next presentation, I'll take lessons on how to use this. Okay, I want to give great gratitude to the workers at the Rocketdyne facility on Canoga Park. I mean, I couldn't find a real actual, this is the total amount, but let's just say thousands over the time period. And you didn't work 9 to 5, you worked long hours, beyond, forget overtime, you just worked because of this important time frame involved to get to the moon and what have you. So unfortunately, the whole area is flat now. It's all been demolished, and I don't know if anyone will care. It makes me feel bad. I have tried to work with the council member to give it some kind of little memorial, something, recognition of all the achievement and all the, you think about all the jobs and just the scientific greatness that happened there, but I don't know. Woolsey Canyon Rocket Road. This road was actually built, really, it was like a dirt road for the different farmers up there, or not farmers, but the cattle people and what have you. So it was built by North American Aviation to be able to transport all of the equipment that had to go up to the Santa Susana Field Lab. You can see on the picture on the collage where they're bringing up some space disc, and it just filled the road. So, okay, I think that's it. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
So, what role did the astronauts play in the rocket development? I mean, if they were part of the launch, and that's in a different place, what
Yeah.
role did they have in the actual rocket production?
Well, I forgot I have it written. One of the engineers several of them were aerospace engineers and test pilots. So they, I'm sure, had their say, involved. But I have no idea how much. I just don't know. And
Were the astronauts scientists as well?
no, there were more. 2 of them were aerospace engineers.
Engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so they had to have a lot of trust in them. You know, with the development, other than the fact that they went to the lowest bidder on building these rockets. Whether that was true or not, well, some of it is, I know for a fact, I deal with that myself. Yeah, but,
So, 43 years ago, I used to teach UCLA archaeology classes near Rocketdyne.
oh, yeah.
And we'd have 30 kids out in the field and they'd blow off one of the rockets. And what is not clear here is the rockets are pointing down. They're facing the earth.
Yeah.
And they'd light them off, everything would just shake like crazy. And you wouldn't just hear them going, whoa!
Yeah.
But the whole earth would shake. It felt like a minor earthquake. And then while they're testing them, the kids would go, are they done? I think so. And then boom, and come back on.
Yeah.
And it's like they're tweaking them a little bit, tweaking them.
Yeah.
Boom, for 5 minutes straight, then blap, 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 like that. And this would go on, I mean, sometimes day after day after day. And we'd be camping and doing archaeology within 4 or 5 miles of this place. Some of my buddies' parents worked at Rocketdyne and said, don't talk about it, it's all top secret, you know,
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. But this was really impressive to be within, you know, not just the visual distance, seeing the plume going up, but hearing it and then just feeling the earth move like crazy. And then it would all be done, and you know, the guys with the clipboards are moving around.
Well, like I said, I lived on the north side of Santa Susana in the 70s, 60s, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the actual number of rocket tested because I would read 13,000 and then somewhere 17,000.
Yeah.
But living there, I mean, at night, I mean, I think they, like you said, they recalibrate and they adjust. And so, or maybe it was on 3 test stands in the, you know, originally,
Sure.
but they're testing.
All the time.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Carla, 13 years of my career, I was lucky enough to be the principal at Canoga Park High School. And the old timers would tell all these stories about in the 60s and early 70s, on Fridays, they would do the testing of the engines.
Yeah.
And at Rocketdyne, and all the way down to Topanga and Van Owen, the school would kind of shake.
Yeah.
To the point where on Fridays, the Fridays that they did the testing, they would rearrange the nutrition schedule so the students were outside. But also, they also tell stories about Alan Shepard one time had car trouble in front of the school, and a couple kids helped him. And he was so impressed by that, he set up for several years, way before I got there, where he set up a scholarship for a Canoga kid to go to UCLA for years and years. But he would tell the different people who were principals at the time, you let it know that I'm doing it, I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't want any glory, I'm going to take care of these kids. They all talk about Shepard, yeah. And then they also talked about the time they brought the engine, I think it was before one of the Challengers, up Topanga Boulevard, towards what's now the 118 freeway, and they let school out to see the big engine, and just took over the whole street. So there's all those stories out there. Yeah.
See, a lot of, I mean, everything I've read, they were sterling.
Yeah.
They were all, there is in front of, on DeSoto, the Aerojet building, which is now L3 Harris. I hope they haven't moved it, but they had one of the Saturn V missiles, rockets, that you could, not the missile, but the rocket engine. And you look at that, you think, and that was only one on that missile, you know,
Yeah.
on the rocket engine. It's amazing what they accomplished, really amazing. And to be so close to it, it was just a great experience for me just to be. We would sit out at night, the housewives with the kids, and the room, and I would just sit there, we'd go on talking. But anyway, I thank you so much for coming. I really
Alright, so, thank you very much, Carla, and, we have here a plaque commemorating this wonderful event. You know, to tell you the truth, I have learned so much about rockets. I can't believe it. It has really been a great talk. Thank you so much, okay?
Thank you.